and stay involved. I will talk to you next week.
You've been listening to Community Connections with Joyce Harvin on KISS 107.1. The views and opinions expressed on Community Connections by the host, its guests, or call-ins do not necessarily represent the opinion of this station, the staff, its owners, Alpha Media USA, or its advertisers.
We'll be going in just a few seconds, guys.
It's Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen, getting right to the heart of the matter, giving you all of what's happening in Saginaw and the Great Lakes Bay region, all at a grassroots level. Sundays at 6 p.m. on KISS 107.1.
We're good.
See if he's moving to, what the heck is it doing this for?
KISS 107.1, WTLC Saginaw, home of the Steve Harvey Morning Show, and simply the best R&B all day. Take us
What's up? What's up?
Smartphone, the JOB, and your Alexa smart device.
Well, good evening, Saginaw. You have tuned into another edition of Straight Talk. I am your host, Kareem Bowen. I thank you guys for tuning in on this Sunday evening. We want to talk about home for the holidays. You know, it is crazy, but it is the end of the year. We are rounding about the end of this year with our last two holidays of this holiday season, which are Christmas and New Year. And so we're going to talk about, are you going home for the holiday? Are the kids coming home for the holiday? How can we have a Christmas celebration? So get your friends on here. This is going to be family time for us. We're just going to have a fireside chat about what's going to be taking place this year. What's happening? How are you going to do it? What are your plans? A lot of people are talking about doing a virtual Christmas, as many try to do on Thanksgiving Day. But I want you guys to know, those of you who are out there, that it's very imperative that whatever we do so and we are safe. We saw a couple of weeks after the Thanksgiving holiday that there was another surge. We don't need a third surge to take place. I am sitting here across from my guy, the main man, the Rob Father. He's in the studio with us on today. Rob, why don't you give a shout out to the people?
What's up, Saginaw? Happy to be here as usual.
Y'all here. What's up, Saginaw? What's up, Saginaw? Happy to be here as usual. Those of you who are out there today, we're going to have a really good conversation. I think it's a conversation that is necessary for us to really make sure that we're going to have an amazing holiday. I don't think that Christmas is canceled. I know that in Great Britain, people were saying Christmas was canceled because their prime minister over there has shut down all travel for the holidays, and they are essentially back where we were at the end of March, where there is no travel. You're only leaving your home for the essentials, to go to the store, go to the doctor. Because there's a new strain that is even more highly contagious of this COVID-19. Absolutely, that they've been.
That's going to.
Well, that's yet to be seen, but their numbers are increasing, and to keep the number of individuals that die from this, that's what they're doing. That's their plan of action. But there is a plan in place, and so I'm glad that there is a plan versus allowing the course to take whatever direction that it should take. But I want to talk about what's on my mind, and then we're going to get into this conversation. My guy Rob Fox is going to ride shotgun with me on today. Rob, that's cool with you, right? You don't mind hanging out with a young guy, do you? Did you hear the silence, y'all? Do y'all hear this? What is up with the disrespect? Oh my goodness, Rob. All right, so those of you, we're in this together, y'all. So good to see those of you who are tuning in via social media. Get your family in here. Let's have a conversation. I love all of you that are out there not doing the family stuff. I see some of those comments already coming in. Let me know, what is your plan and how are you going to do it for the holiday? I want to know. I'm really curious as to what people are doing. Good evening to everyone that is coming in on this evening. All right. So let me know what's going on for the holiday. But what's on my mind? All right. We began the conversation already. I want to talk about the vaccination of America. It is underway and in full swing. Their cause, or what they're hoping, is that by the end of this year, we will have 2 million individuals who have been vaccinated. I believe with their first round of vaccination.
And the elderly are being taken care of.
That's right. Those individuals who are most vulnerable, the healthcare workers, first responders, and healthcare. You know, and it's interesting because I've seen a number of nurses that I know that have received the vaccine. But Rob, where are you at with this whole vaccination thing?
Well, you're talking to a military man, so my views might be skewed a little bit.
Okay, so what are your thoughts?
Well, I've been vaccinated for just about everything, you know, in my 20 years in the military, so I'm not afraid of it. You know, the VA is going to look out for me. I trust them, you know, to look out for me, so I'm good. You know, when they call me and say, Mr. Robinson, you know, come on down and get your vaccination, okay, I'm there.
I want to know how many of the others of you that are listening have that same type of resolve. I see some of you already saying we ain't taking it. This is going to be interesting. I see you guys. Come on, keep telling me what are you going to be doing for Christmas. But Rob, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to need some more people to be vaccinated before I feel comfortable being vaccinated.
Let me go back to a minute. Now, just because you're vaccinated, like if I get vaccinated, doesn't mean I may start wearing my mask because I don't know who isn't vaccinated. There's a lot of anti-vaxxers.
Absolutely.
So until this thing actually filters out
herd immunity, till we get herd immunity, right?
Whatnot, then you know, I'm still going to be cautious about where I am and who I'm with. You know, I mean, I don't know. It's like when you're having sex, you don't know who's got HIV
and who does not.
And just because it said so doesn't mean anything.
So you got to protect yourself.
Exactly.
So one of the things that's interesting is that they are not aware that, you know, they're trying to figure out how long does this vaccination even last? Is there, and I know there's a lot of us that are conspiracy theorists, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. However, I do subscribe to our history as it relates to our community.
As a black man, we know our history, but that does not mean that what happened 80 years ago, whatever it is, may necessarily apply to today.
No, and
at some point we trust the science, you know, and we can't be paranoid. So I implore my brothers and sisters of color out there to think carefully, do your homework, research, get off of Facebook and look at actual science and educate yourselves.
All right, I see some of your responses out there. You can have it, Rob. You can have a couple doses because there's some folks here that are not taking it. Okay, but this is what I'm saying. I understand the history of this, and it's not just about, you know, our past history as relates to Black people with, you know, different vaccinations for polio and different things that we've been given, different things. But it's also, you know, they say the efficacy rate is around 94, 95%. But it is also the fact that this has been rushed through a process. We haven't even had a year of testing, a real try. They've done some things, and
they've been working on this thing for years, though, since SARS came out.
Absolutely, so I agree.
So they've had some advanced training.
So the ending of March will be 1 year that this whole thing has started its process of trying to find this particular vaccination. Right. And so my thing is, I'm not going to say that I won't take it, but I won't take it right now. I need a little bit more encouragement. I need to see other people who are doing.
Well, you're saying that, Korean. I remember now. Everybody's physiology is different.
Absolutely.
So some people have a reaction to it, just like the flu shot. You know, it may not affect me, but it may affect you. You know, in different ways.
Absolutely. And there are some individuals that are having some small reactions from it. So they're doing a pause in certain areas. I just need to have a few more people take it before I do. I know that Vice President took it. Vice President Pence took it on this past Friday, and I'm waiting for. That's what they were told, but I don't do that to me because now you're messing with me. And I'm waiting for number 45 to take it since this is his great push. You know, let's make this happen. He should be the first one in line. But what I realize, and those of you who are listening to me, I got you, Frank. Frank has said he needs a bit more encouragement as well. What is interesting to me is that when they were talking about the president getting the vaccination,
so, you know, have a few drinks and then.
When they were talking about the president getting the vaccination, they were saying, well, because of the types of drugs that he was on, remdesivir and different drugs, that he has to wait a period of time before he is able to get it because these drugs are incompatible.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Not to mention the fact that his age and his health, he already has certain health risks, you know, to.
But I think that it's quite convenient that he is not among the first people who to partake of the drug that he is so passionately pushed out there and said we would have by the end of the year. Well, we did have it at the end of the year. So, hey, congratulations. I want to say thank you to all of those healthcare workers. And I, by no means, I'm trying to tell people not to take it. So many of my friends I've been seeing that are nurses and doctors that have already taken it. And I pray that this is going to go well. I pray that this encourages us to be vigilant, but I'm not at that point quite yet. So y'all, let's pray for each other, and I pray that as we continue, that this turns out to be great. I would love to have something to where we could normalize things to some degree.
Now, by the time the general public gets it, it'll be March, maybe June is what they're talking about. So maybe they would have ironed out some of the bugs and in this vaccine.
I don't need a bug in my vaccination.
Maybe a better version of this. You said 95%. You know, a lot of people still, you know.
And there's 5%. I don't want to be a part of the 5 or 6% crew. But you're making a good point. And actually, we should be used to or getting used to wearing these masks. It's becoming a part of our wardrobe. And they're they're saying that we won't have a large herd immunity where there's a large population that's been vaccinated until about the end of the summer. So we got to get used to these masks wearing, the social distance. I mean, from our community, we were always told to wash your hands. Come on. You know, we've seen a lot of situations that people go into a restroom and come out not wash their hands. A little bleach in the dishes. That's something those were old mom's tales and what grandmama and big mama did that we, picked up and we were always doing.
So you're older than me on that.
But so we want to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to be smart as we begin to move forward. The next thing that I want to talk about, and I brought this up because this happened midweek. This actually came out. The botch raid that took place upon a Black woman in Chicago. You remember, Rob, I brought that up on last week. This raid took place on this woman in Chicago. She had
You
just
brought that up on your show.
on my other show, right? United Shades of Gray. But I want to talk about it here with my straight talk family. This young woman, or this woman, she's not a young woman. She's relatively young. I guess when you hit 50, you're not so old as you grow older. But she comes in and they broke into her home. She had just gotten home. Was changing clothes, getting ready to shower or whatever it is from working. They broke into her home. This is the Chicago PD, Chicago's finest, Miss Anjanette Young. She was still naked going around the house. And we have their body cams from the police officers were recording this entire event, this entire process. And you see them, this woman is crying obsessively, and you see them just walking around like nothing's going on, nothing's happened, and she's crying like, what are you doing? You got the wrong home. Well, guess what? They had the wrong home. It was wrong information, wrong intel. So this woman, the warrant had not been signed. This is really scary because we look at the situation with Breonna Taylor, and there are so many people out there who are going to say, oh, there's a few bad apples. Oh, this was just a mistake. Oh, and sure, they paid the family $12 million, but that cannot bring a life back.
And the dignity, because this one, she lost her dignity.
Absolutely.
And the fact that they handcuffed her while she was naked. And they could have done that a lot better. Now, I have to say this,
say it, Rob.
If the woman had been white, okay, would the situation been different, because looking at Breonna Taylor, which we still have not resolved that issue. Money cannot resolve these things, okay? A certain justice to be done. So when the city comes back and says they're going to apologize, that's not enough for me, because it could have happened to me. I'm thinking I live alone, and if I'm at my home, in a comfortable position, and someone bursts into my home, I'm going to be frightened,
But the thing about this is the eerie connection and the similance to what took place with Breonna Taylor. She was in her home, minding her business. A no-knock warrant comes. They kick in the door. Shots are fired. You're breaking in my home. Of course I'm going to shoot because you're an intruder. She had some previous issues with her previous boyfriend. This is absolutely sad. Same situation. And the woman was saying, I noticed what happened to Breonna Taylor. And so I am just thankful that I am alive to tell this story. But you see her in the video. She is crying. She is naked. Nobody is giving any particular concern. They weren't even giving her something to cover herself with, so she's sitting in there hurt. She's violated. And so it is very irritating. And so you're right. An apology does not work. She does have a suit in against the Chicago PD that is going before the courts. But the way that we found out about this is that the video footage that was acquired by CBS News, they got some of the video footage from those the body cams, and they put the video on TV. And so there was a lawsuit going between CBS and
this happened last year.
Yes, this happened February 19th of 2019. Now, see, this is the problem with this. Right before Breonna Taylor. But the issue with this is this. This is not a one-time occurrence. We are now beginning to understand this idea of these FISA no-knock warrants is absolutely unconstitutional. We're being able to see that they believe that they can treat individuals in our community. And when I say in our community, I'm not just talking about black folks in this situation.
No.
When they go to certain sides of the town, they think that they can violate your constitutional rights and do whatever they feel is necessary to catch a criminal, to catch a petty thug.
The first thing you do to combat this thing, people just want to know how do you combat this thing. Well, the first thing you do is you contact your legislators, okay? Your councilman, your state senator, your congressional senator, and you demand, because they're the ones that we elect to change the law. If you make something law, then it's just like this no-knock warrant thing. There has to be a law somewhere. They got some kind of permission to do something of that nature. So you go after your state legislators and get them to try to change the law.
Well, the situation with this, they lied on the Breonna Taylor warrant. They did not even have proper authorization and signature on this warrant. So now we're seeing, and this is where you are hearing, and I need those of you out there, because I tell you all day that my family is law enforcement. I grew up around law enforcement. I think law enforcement is good. I'm not a defund the police person. However,
and I'm a criminal justice student.
All right. So however, I do understand that I understand where that call is coming from, because we're not seeing just one instance. We're seeing a continual resurgence of these types of things coming to the forefront. We're seeing Breonna Taylor. Once I saw the money come in and they paid her $12 million, I said, get ready for this newfound justice, that there will be no one held accountable for what's taking place. That's exactly. And so I'm waiting for this to take place. We did not hear about this until the lawsuits began to happen. This happened.
And we have to know something too, Kareem. This is just the stuff we know about.
Yeah, this is
it. Just look at somewhere else we don't know about yet. We may hear something happen 5 years earlier.
I mean, but this happens every single day. This is what we need to understand. This happens in communities of color all of the time, especially in those ADOS, ADOS, African descendants of slave communities, where folks look like me on here. This is something that we know about. This is something that we deal with on a regular basis. This is now just coming to the forefront with the rest of America, getting glimpses of what's taking place. And then when they see it, they think, oh, this is just, one case. This is one particular situation. This is rare. It doesn't happen. It happens all of the time. Your cousins, my cousins, somebody cousins that's listening to this conversation will be able to say, you know what, this is what happened. And I knew it was illegal, but they were telling me that this was within their legal rights. We've got to begin to know what is going on, what is legal, what is not legal. I'm waiting for somebody out there to say, listen, we need to have a what are my rights class, and we can do this during the pandemic virtually. I need some attorneys. I need some individuals who may be retired attorney generals, law enforcement individuals. Let's sit down and have a conversation. What are my rights? There's a breakdown in the process for obtaining a warrant that needs to be looked at. And hold them accountable. If you're breaking into somebody's house and you don't have a signed warrant, that should be automatic jail. You should automatically be found guilty.
But then, Kareem, we don't have that opportunity, because Breonna didn't have that opportunity.
No. I'm talking about the post. If these things happen, there should be some automatics that should take place. They don't need to go. This should be automatically. If your warrant is not filed out properly and you have not done your due diligence in terms of your research and it is incorrect, then you are to be held responsible for what it is that you're doing.
The judges issue the warrants, so we have to hold them accountable as well.
That's right. Automatically. Love the ideas. What are my rights? Information. That's what we need. So if you're out there, I know we have a number of law enforcement officers out there that need to be at the table. We've got a number of very bright attorneys that are involved, some politicians. Maybe if you're retired, Carl Williams, come on out of here, the old 95th guy, tie in with the new guy, and let's begin. We need to have a session. What are my rights? When you get pulled over a police officer, how should you handle that? They always tell us, you know what, that's not the time to handle you. You need to go. What is it that we need to do? What are my rights? Because I may not do it the way that you want, but as long as I do it within the confines of my rights, then I want to be able to stand up for myself. And I think that everyone has the right to live out fully everything that the Constitution affords them. And just because you live in a zip code that may not be 90210 does not mean that they can then forge your rights or use them at leisure and take them away according to their desire. So I think that this, amen. Those of you who are out there, yes, I agree. So I think that is something that we need to forge. And even if it's a conversation that we forge here, Rob, through Straight Talk, and we begin to bring in a panel of individuals and we talk about this. We need to
get over into the United States of Great too, because a lot of that this falls right in line with that program.
All right, this is, you didn't Rob is throwing me off on this one.
I'm
United
sorry.
Shades of Grey.
I produce both shows, and I'm passionate about both shows. you know,
For those of you who are listening, this is Straight Talk here on Kiss 107. There's another show that I do, and I thank Yvonne Daniels, who is a great advocate. She's on with us right now. She was a great advocate for saying, Kareem, a lot of the conversations that you're having with our community within the village, so to speak, are conversations that we need to begin to have with the other side of the table. And so we positioned ourselves with the conversation United Shades of Grey, which airs it's right after this show, as a matter of fact.
7 o'clock on our sister station, WSGW AM and FM. And AM is 790 and 100.5 FM, WSGW, 7 o'clock.
But we do a live recording on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. And this is your opportunity to call in and state your voice, state your opinion, get involved. And so I think both of these conversations have to happen. When I have this conversation on the other side of the table, you can imagine this is a very right wing. We're talking Rush Limbaugh and Tucker Carlson station, if you will. That's Fox News Radio or Fox News Media. So the conversation is a lot different there. But what I need you all to understand is that when we go, we should go in force. Whatever we do, we have to do in unity. And so even when I'm on that station, that is a platform for us to have the conversation, the dialogue for the things that plague us in our community, so that we can begin to show the other side of this coin that this is not, one bad cop in a bushel. This is not one situation. This is bad training by but this is a system that is adverse to people who look like me, people of color. And we got to be careful with that, because people of color is different, because all people of color don't get treated the same way. Black folk, when I say, so I often say African descendants of slaves to distinguish those of us who are African-American in our nature. We get treated differently in some respects as other people do not. But we'll continue that conversation. But we got to keep our eyes on this, because like you said, Rob, this is the information. This information came nearly a year later. We're finding out about this nearly a year later. And so when they begin to talk civil suits, when they begin to talk about what's going to take place, and we begin to see dollar signs attached to things, it is almost a sign that there is getting ready to be some okie doke taking place. Be ready for unlegal justice. And so we want to make sure that we're aware of this. The young lady, once again, Anjanette Young is her name. And we want to make sure that we are continually keeping aware of that. Chicago PD, Anjanette Young, and you're probably going to hear more about that as this is now coming to the surface and this information is being released. All right. So once again, I want to thank you guys. I need you guys right after today's show. We will be having, it will air on WSGW. You can go to WSGW.com or listen to those two radio stations that Rob was just talking about, 790 AM or 100.5 PM. And we had a conversation we're going to have some of that conversation today. There was a psychologist by the name of Dr. Gloria Morrow, and this is why this is so important. During the holiday season, so many of us experience sad, it's a type of seasonal depression, all right? And it's important. We were having these conversations. How do we deal with the seasonal depression? How do we deal with the fact that we've lost loved ones during this pandemic? And now this is the first year. This is the first Thanksgiving. This is the first Christmas. This is going to be the first New Year. And anyone who's ever lost anyone that they love, you know that the first is often the hardest. It doesn't mean that once you get through the first, that it's over. But we had a conversation that I thought was so apropos and applicable to where so many of us are today, that we can begin to deal with emotional health. Are you okay was the question that I asked. And I want to ask those of you out there today in social media land, are you okay? I mean, we have had a lot. We have what I learned to be, and this is something like compassion fatigue, having to continually care and pour out those emotions for people that we have seen. I have seen people in neighborhoods just going one after another, husbands and wives going. My cousin, I told you all last week, he's yet in the hospital. We're still praying for Willie Maurice. Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca said she was absolutely awesome. We're praying for him. He's been in the hospital. This is 3 weeks.
Not to mention the stress factor too, because if you're not, even if you're not in the hospital on the bed, it's a stressful thing. It could be depression. You could be at home by yourself, and these things. Well, do I have this thing? The slightest cough or the slightest, problem you have with your health, it can be stressful for you. Oh, you're wondering about I'm wondering about my kid in Minnesota. Is he going to be okay?
And so these are things that we have to really begin to think of. And like I said, and we got to have these conversations, because we spend so much time making sure that so many other things are in position. We're trying to fight for legal justice. We're trying to fight for our rights. We're trying to do this, but we need to ask, I mean, think about it. It is exhausting being a Black person in America. And I don't know how many of you that are listening.
We're tired.
I mean, I am tired. You talk about waiting to exhale. Whitney Houston should come back and do part 2 of the Waiting to Exhale movie, because it is actually exhausting having to be a Black man in America. Having to, as my mom, she was on here before, to feel like I have to compete and I have to be twice as good as my counterparts, to have to go through life and to achieve life and can wear a suit and get the respect that is necessary on a particular platform, throw on a sweatsuit, get in the same vehicle, drive across town, and then be treated less than because they don't know who I am. And it is an exhausting place to be. So when we look at all of the fatigues that are going on, we look at the fatigue, compassion fatigue, the having to love and to care, and seeing 300,000+ individuals die. Now, this drives me crazy because there was a comment that someone made today that, when President Trump decided to close the borders for, to protect Americans, he was considered a racist. But now Canada and Mexico are closing the borders. And so now it's okay. And they were like, let that sink in. And the fact of the matter is this: it wasn't just the fact that he was closing the borders to protect, but it was the nature. It was the racist and the xenophobic way in which he was using this, saying, you know what, hey, they're drug dealers, they're killers. It's the same concept that he was using when he would not stand up and denounce racism and denounce white supremacy in our country. I am so over it. January 20th cannot come soon enough. I have never seen anyone disrespect our nation. And I think about this often, and I'm sure some of you do as well. What if President Obama would have done any of these ridiculous things? I'm not leaving the White House. This election was rigged. It was fake. It was any of these things. What if Hillary Clinton would have done any of these things? Then they would have been saying she's a woman, she's a whiner, they're weak, that's why they shouldn't run for office. This is unacceptable. And I have reached my maximum of frustration with this infantile behavior, and it is time for his team and their asinine behavior to begin to hit the door. And January 20th cannot come fast. I've never been in a position or in a place where I've been so excited about the transition of power ever in my life.
Well, the Electoral College had their vote, and now it has to be confirmed by Congress on January 5th or 6th, I think it is.
Yeah, and in that, we need to realize some things, because there's still some things in here, and this is not something that I meant to talk about. Since we're on this conversation, if things were to go right, and there was our right for freedom as Black people is still, it has to be extended, because it was never implemented as a right or as a law, but it was as an amendment. And so every so often these things have to be amended. So a right to vote, our right to be free, our right to be able to hold the freedoms that the Constitution have as Black people is something that has to continually. I don't understand why we don't just make you're not enslaving me again. We're not going back to Jim Crow. It ain't happening. But we still find ourselves in these same places, and we're okay with allowing them to do extensions. Oh, it's good. No problem. But what happens when we get to a day that someone decides, it's time for us doing extensions, it's time for us to take our country back? And we've got to be aware of those conversations. I mean, it's so necessary.
And you get involved in the process, what's going on. You write to congressmen, or you send a letter, you call your congressmen, you call your legislators, you get involved as best you can, even a small little bit.
Rob, why write? Why don't we just show up to our congressmen and our governors' doorsteps with shotguns and rifles and demand that they do some of these things? I'm just saying. Y'all know what I'm talking about there. All right, so we want to get into this conversation.
That will be expected of us.
Absolutely. So, and that is only because of rhetoric. But I want to get back and listen to that conversation with Dr. Gloria Morrow. She talks about the fatigues that we're dealing with. She talks about how to get through and how to connect and how to really make sure that you're well, make sure that we're all well. Because I'll tell you, in Black communities, mental illness, emotional illness is not something that we ever talk about. And Rob, I see so many individuals who are broken, literally broken, and they're smiling through the fractured smiles of their life, and they're broken on the inside. They're wounded, and we're wondering why certain things are happening and why they're doing so many things, because we are not well.
I pull that question to my fellow Black men out there, because Black men in particular are notorious for not going to the doctor or sharing their feelings and exposing themselves, talking about the feelings and whatnot, or I mean that they're depressed about certain things. We have this stigma that we have to be strong and masculine and be the torch carrier all the time, instead of realizing that we are sensitive and we have feelings and that things hurt us too. Just because we're strong on the outside doesn't mean that we're not breaking up or hurting inside.
Absolutely. And the real sign of strength is when you are able to show your vulnerabilities and yet be strong.
Exactly.
And I think that that's key. But it's important for us to have these conversations. It's important for us to do the work. It's important to make sure that we are okay. And with a pandemic going the way that we have this year, it is absolutely vital that we check in on one another. I love something. One of the young men, Terry, he was here with us last week talking about the Christmas giveaway. And I want to say thank you to all of those organizations, those groups who have really Terry Reed. Yeah. Thank you to all those individuals who have really been doing work and putting in effort. The Christmas giveaways, the Christmas drives, the toy drives have been absolutely phenomenal. This year, the Compassion Fund, for those of you who follow me on Morning Manna, we've already reached our goal. So we have a $500 donation that we'll be able to do to someone in the community for the month of December, $275 from November, $500 from this month. So the community, I think that we're getting this concept. I heard Brenda Moore say something on the show last week with Joyce Harvin. She was talking about it's time for us to get back to the village concept.
Yeah, that show was repeated earlier today. I noticed that too. She just said that's correct.
And that's such a powerful statement. And those of you that are out there listening to us on today, it's time for us to get back to the point. And the village complex, or the concept, is the fact that the African adage says it takes a village to raise a child. And for so long, our village has been on fire. The gates, the walls have been on fire. The gates have been torn down. And we've been fragmented. We've bought into this understanding, of my four, no more, about self-advancement. And now we've got to get back to those particulars. What I learned this year is that if we don't take care of each other, there's nobody who's going to take care of us. And so we've got to begin to understand, and these conversations are so important. Us having these meetings off the air and in Zoom meetings and whenever we're able to get back in the presence of one another, to where we talk about how can we take care of each other, becomes the preeminent thing that's on my mind as we begin to look to 2021, because what 2020 has shown me is that a black man ain't got nobody to love him but Jesus. All right. So let's continue this conversation. Y'all think I'm crazy, but I'm telling you the truth. All right. So what are you guys doing for the holiday season? That's what I want to talk about. We have a remainder 30 minutes here, and I hope that we can have this conversation. There's some stuff that I want to share with you guys, but I want you guys to let's have this conversation. What are you doing for the holiday season? What is the plan? Are you going on the road? Are you going to be with family and friends? I know many of you are saying you're staying in place. No, you're not doing the whole bring family overs. Because Rob, they're still talking about you getting 2 shots of this vaccine. I'm cracking up laughing. Rob is going to get all the shots of the vaccine because people are still giving them away. But what is the plan that you guys are putting in place? Now, I want to say this and this is very important. Because we could not stay home for Thanksgiving, and I need you all to lean in and really hear. No, stay home, because people couldn't stay in place. Oh, that's right. And they just had to. We're not going to let this ruin us. We're going to have faith, and we're going to do. I lost a very good friend because we were unable to do without being in gatherings and all of these things during the Thanksgiving season. She was doing well. She had some pre-existing conditions. The family was around. 2 days after the family left, she realized that she tested positive for COVID. And a week later, she died. And so when we see this, and I get on Instagram and I'm on Facebook and social media looking at stories and people partying and just living their best life, and all of this other stuff, it is absolutely mind-blowing to me how selfish we've become, because I look at my friend who would still be here today. I mean, I have seen COVID go from Washington State to New York State and being so far away and being a big city thing, to where now it is strangling the streets of our neighborhood. It is walking literally through the hood, through our neighborhoods, and knocking on doors, almost like the death angel, and taking away people in our community, people in our family, people that are key to the village, and just taking them away. And I'm almost like glad to hear that someone's dying for something other than COVID. And that is depressing. But this particular friend, she was doing well, and was making a great recovery, and just had to have the family around for the holiday. Enjoyed the holiday, but a week later, after that holiday, is no longer with us on today. So I want to have this conversation with you all. What are you guys doing? Are you home for the holidays? Are you allowing your kids, your children to come home? What is the situation? Because this is a real serious issue. And for many of you say, well, we don't know if we're going to be here next year, but why guarantee that you won't be here for the beginning of this year? Why take the risk when we could all social distance? We could all do what's necessary. We could, in this particular thing, let's miss Christmas together this year and make it extra special next year. But we cannot do that if we're not willing to take this thing seriously and begin to, use some wisdom and some understanding in terms of how we move forward. So with that being said, because Rob, I was thinking it gives us a new meaning of this concept of "I love you to death,"
Yeah.
and in many reasons, in many ways. I have some relatives that are here. My aunt, I have an aunt, my great aunt, who is not my great aunt, my oldest aunt, who is the matriarch of our family. Her grandchildren want to come and see her. Now they're in that age group that people are staying home. They're doing and seeing friends and hanging out and doing all these things. Yeah, no masks are being worn unless they have to, in certain places, because it's not cool. And we're going to be okay anyways because we're young, but they're not thinking about the fact that 30 minutes or that hour, 2 hours that you're out with your friends, hanging with your friends, and just enjoying yourself could be the thing. It could be the thing that causes someone else that you love to no longer be with us.
I had that on my conscience. I went to some party or family gathering, and I didn't wear my mask or some kind of protection, and somebody died because I was there, not necessarily because it came from me, but because I was there. So I was part of that group. I couldn't have that on conscience because it could have been me.
Okay, Barb Littles. Barb Littles, my wonderful friend out there who lives in the big mansion in the sky in West Virginia. Barb, we love you out there. She says she's home as badly as I wanted to see my granddaughter. Yes, we know Eden is the bomb. She is the best. We all decided to stay home. Please, people, stay home, even if it's family. And that's the thing I think that makes it hard, Barb, is because when we do this, we're thinking like, well, those are my kids. They're not going to hurt me. This COVID thing is a secret killer. And what we are hearing and what we're understanding, and if it's in Great Britain, it's most likely here in the United States, that there is a new mutation of this thing that is much more highly, contagious than what we've seen before. So I want to make sure that we are all here. I love to have these conversations with those of you in our Straight Talk audience, but it's important that we realize that it's important for us to hunker down. Let's be vigilant. Let's be sober-minded in our thinking so that we can live to come together and have these conversations. And we'll talk about what COVID used to be and how COVID shut the world down for a complete year. But we cannot do that and will not be here if we don't make some wise decisions right now. So ideally, I would love for everyone to have a virtual Zoom, Google Meets, Facebook rooms. Even now on Facebook, you can create a room and invite everybody in there and everybody can see each other and you can have this interactive thing. That would be the ideal thing to do. Now, I know some of us are like, well, I got to go see my mama. I know I got to see well, if you absolutely must, I tell you this, I stopped by my mother's house and I'm very conscious of who I'm around. I had to do a funeral last week. I'm a pastor, so
I go all the time because of what you do.
Well, but I'm cautiously around people, and even with the contract work, they know that if we're going to be on site, then no one else is on the site with us. Otherwise, we can't meet your timeline. And so I make those commands or those demands as I relate it to work. I had to do a funeral, and I was really shocked because and those of you who saw the funeral, there was really no social distancing. Inside the church that we were in, there were like faces or seats that were marking 6 feet apart. But within the funeral itself, the people just kind of said we're over. Now, where we were, we think it won't happen to us. You're absolutely right, Barb Littles. Patricia Appling, I got you. Stay home, stay safe. FaceTime your loved ones, the new way of communicating this day. Absolutely. These are all great thoughts. We were probably a good, I want to say 30 yards away from everybody, 40 yards. So there's quite a distance. I was probably 50 yards from the podium another 20, 25, 30 yards from where they were. So in terms of where I was standing, I was safe. I had on 2 masks. I had 2 masks on the entire time. When it got time that I had to minister, I took 1 mask off to speak through that mask. And so I had 1 mask that remained on because it is not just, and this was somebody that I really cared about, someone that I really loved. But she's no longer with us, and we've got to begin to think past our emotional state at this moment. And I thought to myself, I have a mom to go back to that has pre-existing conditions. I have a brother who just got out the hospital with pre-existing conditions. I have a number of loved people, a grandmother who has pre-existing conditions out in Las Vegas. There are people that I meet on a regular daily basis that I need to make sure that I'm continually staying clear, so that I could not live with myself knowing that I would be the reason for someone's demise. And I saw this, but because we're family, because we love each other, because they're not going to hurt us, because I need to feel their hug, there was a complete violation or throwing away of the concept of social distancing. And I was really concerned in that moment. But I need you all to understand, this can happen to you. This is not something that cannot come to your doorstep. So despite all of these strong recommendations to stay home and celebrate, I know that there are, even with just your own family, not your family that's coming from other households, stay home with your own. My cousins posted something to social media, Rob, and the rest of the family was offended by it. But, I'm straight talk. So I kind of say what I wasn't offended. And the letter in jest said, you know what? Hey, my mother has pre-existing conditions. So all you family and friends that think that this is something that you would love to do and want to visit my parents in the height of a pandemic, and thinking that your visit is going to be great, it could be signing a death sentence for my parents. I don't care how you feel about it, but we're asking that you would keep your visits to either FaceTime, to phone call, or through text messages, because they will not be accepting visitors. And people were offended by that. But my thing is, I think that that's the place that we are. Now, could have been said a little bit nicer. I think so.
No, because we've been doing the same for a good 9 months now. And if you don't know what's going on by now, then you've been in the twilight zone someplace.
But people are acting like they're on, especially those young people. And I get it. When I was young, to restrain me when I was in my heyday, and it's time to party, and it's time to turn up, and it's time to have a good time, and they're telling me that it's not going to affect me now. They were all scared when it first came out. But when younger people are not affected as much, then they went back to normal. But there is a need for all of us to understand that we are better together. We are a team, and even though you may be a part of the starting lineup, there's still some folks that are on the bench, and we've got to make sure that we win the game, not only for those who are on the court, but those who are also on the bench are a part of this team. The coaching staff, the water boys, everybody gets a ring when we win this game, but we've got to make sure that we're looking out for everybody. So if you're planning to attend or host a small celebration, the CDC advises you to do some of the following things. But before we do that, I got a man who's across the table from me, and he is not a guy who likes surprises, but I have Rob, who is my producer, and I want to say Merry Christmas, Rob. Y'all can't even see it. It says Merry Christmas, Rob, for those of you in social media.
Oh, wow.
And I say this to him because this is about, I am a family person, and I want to give him, Rob, this is for you.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, see, you're right. I don't like surprises.
You all out there know that Rob drives me crazy. He will yell at me. He will beat me up. But he also does it.
So cool.
Awesome. Absolutely. He does it.
Thank you so much.
He's opening his gift. Rob, you're gonna have to come behind us so they can see your gift.
All right. Let me get on there. Keep the social distancing thing.
Okay. I wanted to do something for him because he worked so hard, both here at Straight Talk with Kiss 107, and then also now with United Shades of Gray over at WSGW.
I love this. This is really nice.
And so I paid attention to how he likes to dress, and I hope I got it right.
Yeah, I'm laid back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say, Rob, thank
really
you.
nice, man. Thanks, bro.
Absolutely. I want you're in my 6 feet of space. I'm just joking. No, but I wanted to say, Rob, to you and to those who are listening, I wanted to show my appreciation and my thanks to you. When you
put it on the camera over here.
when we were first when we were first paired
Also,
together.
There it is.
Yeah, when we were first paired together, Rob, they came like, I'm gonna put you with Rob. He's a guy who's kind of, he's a military guy, so he's kind of regimented, this, that, and the other. And I was like, I can deal with anybody. And I came in the first time, and Rob started barking at me. I was like, oh Lord Jesus, what are we gonna do with this dude now? And I could recognize it because
alpha male, so we get along quite well.
And Barb was in the room. Rob is awesome. Merry Christmas, Rob. That's from Barb. Thank you, Kareem, for keeping it straight in my absence. And she said, I'll keep you straight. But Barb was here, and what we realized, I said, you know what? Rob he's someone that I can relate to. I understand where you are, Rob. And so I said, I can relate to him because I know that sometimes I can be a bit bombastic. I can be a little bit outspoken and rough around the edges. And so I could appreciate you showing me myself in some situations. And so we work well together. I appreciate that so much for those of you. Absolutely, we do. And so I thank you for all that you do. And if nobody else appreciates you, I want you to know that you are appreciated. And if I'm going to talk about us appreciating one another and rebuilding the village, then that conversation has to start with me. And I want to thank all of you that are out there that listening, that continue listening to Straight Talk, and that will start tuning in to United Shades of Gray, and they're here when the classic, what is it called, Rob?
Classic Soul Sunday with the Rob.
Classic Soul Sunday with the Rob. I want to say thank you for all of you guys. This guy works really hard. He does goes extra mile. If you could hear me when we get off the radio station, he gives me a critique. Make sure you don't say this. No, don't say this. Say this. Make sure. I want to make sure that it's right. And so I've come to appreciate that. I'm a person. I say straight talk. I say how I feel, and I appreciate people who can be straight talkers as well. So Rob, I want to say thank you very much. So Barb, we certainly thank you. She is actually the most important. She's probably one of my greatest friends in my life who has the most impact. We miss her as well.
I miss her being, because you two really got along the show, and when it started out whatnot, and Barb, here to come back in the city, let us know, and we get you on, even on United Shades of Gray.
And Barb, we'll have a conversation. Barb put a challenge to me, and I had to process it. Barb, I was still processing what you said to me, and I'm still processing that, but I want to have a conversation with you because your presence is missed. I miss you if nobody else misses you, and I know that they all miss you. All right, so let's get back to the conversation at hand. This is the holiday season. This is the season to appreciate those loved ones and to show what love is. And for me, it is, as a believer, as a Christian, this is not about gifts. It is not about, but it's about what we have received in the gift of my precious Lord and Savior. And so I believe that the most that I can do is, as God gave his son, that I give a piece of myself and show love to those who are around me. And so I want to make sure that you all know that you guys are a part of this community and a part of this family. But I want to get back to what we're talking about. The CDC gave some clear guidelines. And for those who are listening, I just want to share these with you. One of those is that we should discuss the expectations ahead of time. If you're going to host an event, let everybody know, listen, this is a social distancing event. And of course, we're probably not going to be as socially distanced when we're in someone's home as we would be normally. But that doesn't mean that we cannot wear masks, that we're not going. When you come in, everybody has to wash and sanitize, and then we have to do that before we do anything else, before we touch food. But let your guests know what to expect. The next thing is we want to check, is COVID going crazy in Saginaw? Because what we realized a couple of weeks ago is that our numbers here in the city of Saginaw were twice that of Michigan, and Michigan was out of control. So when we were looking going per capita, our COVID number of infection rate was twice that of the state of Michigan. So Saginaw, if you're living in Saginaw, this is no time to be doing all this visitation. We are a hotbed. And so it's important that as a hotbed that we stay to ourselves and we begin to do some distancing. I have some folks, and I'm going to tell you, I have one aunt that I'm seriously concerned about because she has her grandkids coming. And I ain't trying to throw her out there, but I'm hoping that she hears this show. And I'm not afraid, I'm concerned. And I would like for us to mitigate anything that would cause any issues for anybody I love. We got people that are in the hospital already, and the last thing we need are more people in the hospital during this holiday season. Patricia Avalon Gaines, I'm going to read your comment. Real talk, you let different ones in and out your home. Don't know who they've been around, just the ones who have already been around me since this pandemic started. I have Lysol and wipes and sanitizer at the front door for ones who have already been in and out. Now, this is the key thing that we've got to understand with this. We love people and we don't want to turn people away. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't have a solid gauge as to how people are living their life, because there's some people that are social distancing when they're with you. And if you follow any social media pattern or you do anything, you'll see them in other groups without masks, and I've had to distance myself from people who take on that personality, that they're social distancing with me. But in the grand scheme of things, they are not doing those same things in other circles because I have to protect myself and those who are around me.
And people should not take offense to it. Some people take offense to it, and if you take offense, that's too bad. Don't take offense to it because the life you save may be your own life.
Rob, I don't care. that sounds. I do not. Everybody, listen. I do not care, and neither should you. You have to protect. This is like if there was an intruder that was breaking in your door and was going to ravish and take advantage of you and your family. You would do everything necessary to protect your family.
Exactly.
And this is the same situation. We have an invisible intruder that is trying to do that. All right, limit the number of people to a gathering. I know. Now, listen, my family, my mom comes from a family of 10 kids. And each of those 10 kids, I think, tried to outproduce my grandparents in having kids. So it's a whole mess of us. Anybody knows the Bourne clans, the Bournes, the Burns, the Prescotts, the Walk, everybody that's out there. But we're not doing that this year. And as a matter of fact, I stopped over and there's this kind of, my mom cooked today. And I said, hey, she cooked one of my favorite childhood meals. I said, I'm going to stop by. And you know what I did? I went in, washed my hands, and I sat across from her about 6 feet away. I had my mask on the entire time. Then I went, got some food, washed my hands again, sanitized, ate my food, put my mask back on, and I conversed with her because this is what the times dictate. And it's important that we are really taking note of what the times dictate and that we're moving according to the times. So now hosting, they said you can host outdoor gatherings. We live in Michigan. Now I do have a heated garage. So if somebody wants to come over, I can open up the garage door. You can stand 6 feet away and we can have all the conversation you want to have. But open windows for better ventilation. The key is to keep the air moving. So if people are going to be over, understand that your heating bill is going to be a little bit higher here in Michigan. Open up the windows, put some fans in rotation, and let's begin to do what's necessary. Require guests. Every guest should wear a mask. Every host should wear a mask. And we should continually be washing and keeping ourselves safe. Now, some keys. Wash hands just before you handle anything that someone else is going to handle. So what this means is,
don't borrow cell phones.
You're not borrowing No, you're not borrowing because these are ways that we easily transmit. I went to a restaurant. I dared probably about, and I want to share this, and you guys need to listen to this because this is so important. Because what I observed changed. I can't go and do to a restaurant like that anymore. I was in a restaurant, and in this restaurant, I'm not going to tell you. I'll tell you what, Buffalo Wild Wings. I was in the restaurant and sitting in the restaurant, and me and my friend, we were there for lunch, and I ordered my food, and we were sitting there. They, came and took our order, and the waitress, the server came, not waitress, the server came from one table. She had picked up the glasses that the table was drinking with, and she came over to our table. She says, "Hey, what would you like to drink?" She took our drink orders. Then she took those glasses she had. She went over to the bar station and they started cleaning up. The bartender took the glasses, cleaned the glasses. She then went to another table, picked up drinks from there, went to the other table, gave the drinks to the person that was there, took their empties, went over back to the bar table, came to take our order. Is there anything I could give you? And I sat there and I watched her hands cycle through about 4 or 5 tables that she was waiting on. And not once there was no additional sanitizer. There were no gloves that were being exchanged. She touched them, then she took them to the bartender who was making drinks for people. So every glass that was touched by the bartender and this woman that was in this entire area. And even though the tables were socially distanced, these glasses and the touching of these glasses had made their rounds to every table in there. So when she came back to me, I said, "Ma'am, you know what? I don't want anything to drink. And as a matter of fact, I don't want anything to eat." And I could not eat because I saw how that was happening. Now, it made me also think about how these drive-through lines are so long. And when you go through a drive-through, there's Starbucks. I love Starbucks. Every single morning, I would go in there, get a vanilla latte, extra skinny, extra shot, and enjoy my latte. The line is around the building, and I pull up, and the lady is exchanging the money with the customers. She's taking their cards with the customers. And when I got there, I was like, "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I don't want the drink. I don't want the drink." And I left it. So I haven't been to Starbucks since. This is how we cross-contaminate. And if we were to have a blue light or a green light or a black light that would begin to show how much exposure there is, every single individual, money is the dirtiest thing that you can have because it changes hands. But now you're talking about people's cards. Who's coughing in their hands before they hand the card to the lady who takes the cut? And then what is she touching else inside the place? And so we've seen restaurants and places like Starbucks continually being shut down because of COVID cases. And I would say those multiple places of contact are places where we begin to see those things take place. If you're out there and you're going to be having people in your home, make sure that everyone sanitizes before they begin to or handle the dishes. As a matter of fact, go to Gordon's and get you a box of plastic gloves and allow the people when they serve themselves to go put on the gloves, the plastic gloves, go through the line, and then take their gloves off and throw them in the trash at the end of this thing. This is about being smart and staying healthy. And so I want you guys all to be with us as we begin to transition from 2020 to 2021. All right. So only remove masks while eating and like and limit conversations. No hugs and kisses, fist bumps and nods is all we getting. Y'all know a fist bump. What's up, my dog? Not throw that nod that you have when you walking across the street and you see your brother on the other side or sister. You just throw up that nod and everybody understands what that means. It's time for us to begin. Now, one thing that I would love to suggest for those of you out there, a family game night, a Zoom or virtual family game night. One of the things that I've been working on is doing charades, Rob, and that each family could have a team and we could do charades, and the person that's on the other side choose a team that will select on the other side of the camera in another place, and then you begin to play charades. There's another way you can play Pictionary, Imaginative, all of these games that we can do in virtual reality. The key thing is to make sure that we connect and we love each other and we stay connected and we have a little bit of fun in the process, all right? I talked to you guys about seasonal depression, and I want to kind of lean in just for the last couple of minutes of our show here. There's something called SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder, and it is, in essence, seasonal depression. And many of us suffer from seasonal depression, not knowing that we are actually suffering from this. They will tell you that it's often, especially in Michigan, because our summers are so gray and there's very limited sun that we see. And so they will tell you to get as much sunshine that you possibly can. They may tell you to get some vitamin D because you begin to lack that and it begins to put a feeling of depression in your life. How do you know if you're seasonally depressed? And these are some things that are important. There may be a loss of interest or a loss of joy, not feeling the spark of enthusiasm about the things that you remember enjoying or being passionate about them in the past. You may experience sleeping issues, and this is what Dr. Gloria Moore said. If you're not sleeping the way that you normally do, changes in your mood, noticing that you're feeling low or down more often than you are feeling yourself. Low energy, feeling like you're operating in slow motion. Now, unfortunately, COVID has some of those same symptoms, but these are things that I want us to know. Are we okay and are we leaning in? Because if we're going to be home for the holidays, let's maximize the moment. Let's enjoy ourselves. And depression is something that will happen oftentimes, Rob. And this is something I'm going to call you on Christmas Day, Rob, because I know that many times, what are you doing for Christmas, Rob?
Staying home.
You're staying home.
Chilling out. It's another day for me. You know.
See, that's what I'm talking about. He says he's staying home. He's chilling out. It's another day. And oftentimes we spent so much time by ourselves in the course of this pandemic that it's important that we stay connected. So guess who's going to give his guy a call on Christmas Day? I'm going to give my guy, the Rob Father, a call, and I'm going to holler. I'm going to check in with other individuals to make sure that they're doing well. It's important that we stay connected. We are physically distanced, but we need to remain socially connected. All right, are there changes in my mood? Am I having difficulty paying attention or focusing? Do I feel a need to just be by myself? It's called social isolation. Am I feeling on edge? Is everything beginning to make me irritable? Changes in your appetite, changes in your sex drive, using drugs or alcohol. You know, there's one thing about some people have, a nightcap, or they may have a group of social drinks, but are you drinking or doing drugs more than you normally do? I guess if you're doing either of those, you need to take a look at it. But when we begin to get depressed, we find a way to a way of escape. And sometimes we use those substances as a way of escape. And I want to give you guys just a couple tips as we are closing out and rounding out this particular session. Once again, I told you, soak up all the natural light that you can. It is so imperative in the gray skies of a Michigan winter. And on tomorrow, the 21st and the 22nd, they are considered the darkest or the shortest days of our entire year. So tomorrow, the next couple of days will be so dark. They'll be dark probably by 5 o'clock instead of 5:30. Let's make sure that we're taking up as much light as we can. Take a walk around the corner, get yourself some exercise, get some fresh air in your lungs, hit up that vitamin C. You can go to Grains and Greens and grab some. but it's a vitamin D, excuse me, to make sure that you're getting what you need. Number 2, limit the stress. Let it go. Let's make sure that we understand if you don't get the perfect gift, it's going to be okay. You will survive. It's going to be okay. Ruth says they have lights to stimulate daylight. They try to keep yourself in a room with a lot of sun exposure. This is so important. But we need to learn to limit our stress and let those things go that we cannot control. Lastly, as I said once again, stay connected. I'm going to figure out how we can bring people together, and we'll share even on Christmas Day. It is vitally important in a time when we have been socially and physically disconnected that we make sure during these times that mean so much, when people are experiencing in full propriety the loss of their loved ones, that we make sure that we're reaching out, we're connecting, and we're loving on each other, and we're showing them that they are not alone. I believe that we can get through anything that we put our heads together and we stand strong with together in unity. I want to thank everyone that's tuned in today. I want to thank you for your continual participation with Straight Talk and now United Shades of Gray. I want you guys to have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Take care of yourselves and each other. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. God bless you all.
You've been listening.